Imagine a burning building. Smoke thickens the air, alarms are screaming. You don't have time to think, only time to move. There are 2 rooms. In one, there's a human stranger, someone you've never met. No history, no story. Just a life you're told matters, because it's human. In the other room, there's a dog. It's terrified, barking, scratching at the door. Its eyes are wide, locked onto yours, not with understanding, but with raw panic. You can only save one. And before your mind finishes forming a thought, something inside you reacts. Maybe you hesitate, maybe you feel a pull toward the dog, maybe your chest tightens in a way you didn't expect. If that happened, even for a split second, you're not alone, and you're not broken. More and more people are willing to admit something that used to stay hidden. They feel a faster, stronger surge of empathy for animals than for other humans. They grieve their pets more deeply than distant relatives. They feel their stomach drop over a video of a mistreated cat while scrolling past headlines about human suffering. And that realization is uncomfortable because we're taught a clear rule: people come first. Human life is supposed to hold the highest moral value. So when your instincts don't follow that script, the question hits hard. What does that say about you? About us? Are we becoming colder toward people? More detached? Even misanthropic? Or is something else happening beneath the surface? Something psychological, biological, and deeply human that we've never been taught how to recognize? That's where this conversation really begins. That uncomfortable feeling doesn't come from the instinct itself. It comes from the rule it just violated. Most of us were raised with a clear moral hierarchy. People come first. Human life is taught as sacred, superior, unquestionable. It's woven into our education, our religions, our laws, and our social expectations. So when your body reacts in a way that doesn't line up with that belief, your mind rushes in to correct it. You tell yourself you're being irrational, heartless, selfish. You wonder if something in you has gone wrong. But that judgment misunderstands what just happened. Your instinct wasn't making a moral decision. It wasn't weighing values or ranking lives. It was responding to immediacy, fear, vulnerability, and emotional clarity. Your nervous system doesn't speak the language of ethics. It speaks the language of survival. That's why the reaction feels wrong. Not because it is wrong, but because 2 different systems are speaking at the same time. One is cultural, slow and learned. The other is biological, fast and automatic. When they don't agree, we experience that clash as guilt. And that guilt often gets misinterpreted as something darker. Maybe I care less about people. But psychology points in a different direction. This isn't about losing your humanity. It's about understanding how empathy actually works, before we judge ourselves for having it. To understand why that instinct appears so quickly, we need to let go of a comforting idea that empathy is fair, that it responds equally to all suffering. It doesn't. Empathy is selective, and more than anything else, it is drawn to vulnerability. When people are asked to respond to stories of harm, a consistent pattern shows up. Adult humans tend to trigger less immediate emotional response than children or animals, not because their lives matter less, but because our brains perceive them differently. The moment we see an adult human, our minds begin to assign agency. We assume capability, choice, context. Without realizing it, we start asking silent questions. Could they have avoided it? Did they provoke it? Do they have resources, power, options? Empathy slows when responsibility enters the picture. But when the victim is clearly defenseless, an infant, a puppy, a frightened animal, those questions disappear. There is no imagined backstory that explains the pain away. The suffering feels undeserved, absolute, and urgent. Nothing interferes with the protective response. This is what psychologists refer to as the empathy gap. Not a gap between humans and animals, but between those we perceive as powerful and those we perceive as powerless. Your nervous system is built to respond fastest to beings that cannot protect themselves. It prioritizes innocence over similarity, vulnerability over identity. That mechanism evolved long before moral philosophy or social rules existed. Its job was simple: protect what is most at risk. This is why a single image of a hurt animal can overwhelm us emotionally, while large-scale human suffering can feel distant or numbing. Complexity dilutes empathy. Ambiguity weakens it. Scale overwhelms it. So when your reaction pulls harder toward an animal, it isn't making a statement about whose life is worth more. It's responding where vulnerability is clearest and where empathy doesn't have to argue with judgment first. That response may feel confusing, but it is not evidence of cruelty. It's evidence of how deeply your system is wired to protect the innocent before it ever has time to think. There's another layer to this reaction that often goes unspoken. It isn't just who we feel empathy for, but how much we can afford to feel at all. We live in constant exposure to human suffering. Wars, crimes, corruption, stories stacked on top of stories, day after day. The scale is overwhelming, the causes are complex, and the solutions feel far beyond our reach. When suffering becomes too vast to hold, the mind adapts. It narrows. Psychologists call this compassion fatigue. It's not indifference, it's self-protection. Your emotional system learns to ration empathy because feeling everything would collapse you. So it becomes more selective, more cautious about where it invests care. Animal suffering doesn't carry the same cognitive weight. It's smaller, clearer, and morally uncomplicated. There's a victim, and there's harm, nothing to debate. That clarity makes the pain feel manageable. You can respond without drowning in context, politics, or blame. This doesn't mean human suffering matters less to you. It means your system is trying to survive a world that asks you to care about everything, all the time. So empathy doesn't disappear, it concentrates. And in a cruel, chaotic world, it often flows toward places where innocence is obvious, and where caring doesn't demand that you solve the impossible before you're allowed to feel. Beyond empathy itself, there's a quieter reason animals often feel easier to be around. Interacting with humans is exhausting in ways we rarely name. Every human interaction carries layers of interpretation: tone, timing, status, intention. You're not just listening, you're monitoring how you're being perceived. Did you say too much? Too little? Did that joke land wrong? Did your silence mean something it shouldn't have? Psychologists refer to this as interactional fatigue. It's the mental drain that comes from constantly adjusting yourself in response to other people's expectations. Even conversations that look pleasant on the surface can leave you feeling oddly depleted afterward. And that fatigue adds up. With people, there's always the possibility of misunderstanding, judgment, or rejection. You're performing, even when you don't mean to. You're filtering parts of yourself to stay acceptable, safe, or liked. Now compare that to the presence of an animal. A dog doesn't track your social value. A cat doesn't analyze your tone. They don't read into your pauses or remember your mistakes. You don't have to manage an image. You don't have to explain yourself. The relief comes not from being adored, but from not being evaluated. In a world that constantly asks you to show up correctly, animals offer something rare: permission to exist without editing. You don't need to be impressive, articulate, or emotionally regulated. You just need to be there. And for a nervous system that's been on guard around people for too long, that simplicity isn't trivial, it's deeply restorative. What animals offer isn't constant stimulation or unconditional praise. It's something quieter than that. They offer emotional silence, not the kind of silence that feels cold or withdrawn, but the kind that doesn't demand a response. When you're with an animal, there's no pressure to fill the space, no expectation to perform, explain, or regulate your emotions for someone else's comfort. And your body knows the difference. Around people, your nervous system often stays slightly alert. You're reading faces, tracking tone, anticipating reactions. Even in loving relationships, part of you may remain braced. But with animals, that vigilance softens. Your breathing slows. Your shoulders drop. The internal noise settles. This shift isn't imagined, it's biological. Interacting with animals has been shown to lower cortisol and increase oxytocin, the hormone associated with bonding and safety. More importantly, it activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the part responsible for rest, digestion, and recovery. Your body moves out of readiness and into regulation. That's why relief often comes before thought. You feel calmer before you understand why. Animals don't ask you to process your feelings out loud. They don't need reassurance or emotional labor in return. Their presence doesn't turn into a conversation that needs managing. In a world that is loud, reactive, and emotionally demanding, this kind of quiet connection becomes precious. Animals feel safe not because they solve your problems, but because they don't add new ones. They create a space where nothing is required of you except presence. And sometimes, that absence of demand is the most powerful form of comfort the nervous system can receive. There's another force quietly shaping this bond, one rooted deep in our biology. Humans are wired to respond to certain cues. Large eyes, soft features, clumsy movements, small bodies that signal dependence. These traits activate what researchers call the baby schema, a built-in system designed to ensure we protect and nurture the vulnerable. Domesticated animals, through generations of living alongside us, carry many of these traits well into adulthood. When you look at a dog's face or hear the high-pitched sounds a cat makes, the same caregiving circuits that respond to human infants begin to light up. Oxytocin rises, attention narrows, protection comes online. But animals offer something human. Children eventually don't. They don't grow out of that stage into complexity. They don't challenge your authority, question your intentions, or measure your worth. They remain dependent without judgment, affectionate without evaluation. For many people, that makes nurturing feel safe again. It satisfies a fundamental human need to care, to protect, to matter, without the anxiety of being assessed in return. You're not being graded on your patience, your success, or your emotional maturity. Your care is enough. In a world where even love often feels conditional, animals allow us to give without fear of failing. They let the nurturing instinct exist without being weighed, corrected, or criticized. And for a nervous system used to earning approval, that simplicity can feel like relief. For many people, the preference for animals isn't just about comfort, it's about safety. When someone has been hurt repeatedly through bullying, emotional neglect, betrayal, or unpredictable relationships, their nervous system learns a quiet lesson. Connection is risky. This isn't a belief you choose. It's a pattern your body absorbs over time. In those environments, the system adapts. You become alert to tone shifts, facial expressions, small changes in energy. Your body stays ready, braced for the moment something turns. Psychologists describe this as hypervigilance, but from the inside, it simply feels like never fully relaxing around people. Sometimes the response goes even further. Instead of anxiety, the system shuts down. Words disappear, emotions flatten. This is the freeze response, when engagement feels more dangerous than distance. From the outside, it can look like withdrawal or indifference. From the inside, it feels like being locked out of your own reactions. Animals don't trigger these defenses. They don't criticize, manipulate, or suddenly withdraw affection. They don't punish vulnerability or use it against you later. There's no social power dynamic to navigate, no emotional trap hidden in the interaction. Because of that, the nervous system responds differently. The threat response quiets. The body allows closeness without scanning for danger. For the first time, connection doesn't require armor. In attachment terms, many people who struggle with insecure or avoidant bonds with humans form remarkably secure attachments with their pets, not because animals replace people, but because they offer a bridge, a way to experience touch, presence, and affection without the fear of betrayal. From this perspective, preferring animals isn't avoidance, it's regulation. It's the psyche choosing a form of connection that meets the need for closeness while minimizing the risk of harm. A solution shaped by survival, not cynicism. And once you see it that way, the preference stops looking like withdrawal from humanity and starts looking like an intelligent response to what your nervous system has already lived through. This sense of safety isn't accidental. In attachment theory, a safe haven is a presence you return to when the world feels overwhelming, a place where your nervous system can settle without being challenged or corrected. For many people, animals have quietly taken on that role. What's striking is how secure these bonds often feel. People who struggle with closeness, trust, or consistency in human relationships frequently experience deep stability with their pets. There's reliability, predictability, affection that doesn't fluctuate based on mood, status, or performance. At the same time, another psychological process is at work: anthropomorphism. We talk to our pets, we interpret their gestures as understanding, their presence as empathy, and while that might sound like projection, it reveals something important. We don't project chaos onto animals, we project our ideals: loyalty, patience, forgiveness, emotional availability. We imagine in them the qualities we long to encounter, without manipulation, without hidden costs. In a sense, the animal becomes a container for the kind of human connection that feels too rare or too risky to expect from people. This doesn't mean the bond is fake, it means it's reparative. We're not escaping humanity through animals, we're rehearsing it, experiencing closeness without fear, learning what it feels like to be met with steadiness instead of judgment. And that matters, because the nervous system learns through experience, not insight. Each moment of safety rewrites expectation. Each quiet, consistent bond softens the belief that connection must hurt. In that way, animals don't pull us away from human relationships. They quietly remind us what safe connection was always supposed to feel like. In the end, this was never really about choosing animals over people. It was about what feels safe to love. Preferring animals doesn't mean you lack empathy for humans. It means you may be tired of navigating disappointment, judgment, and emotional complexity. It means your system has learned, often through experience, that connection with people can cost more than it gives. Animals don't demand explanations. They don't keep score. They don't turn vulnerability into leverage, so they become a place where care feels possible again. But here's the part that often gets missed. Animals aren't replacing human connection. They're holding a space for it. They're reminding your nervous system what steadiness feels like, what presence without pressure feels like, what affection without conditions feels like. And once your body remembers that, something important shifts. You may begin to notice that you don't need everyone to feel safe, just the right people. Slowly, carefully, that sense of calm can travel with you into friendships that respect your boundaries, into relationships that don't require performance, into moments where being human no longer feels like a risk you have to calculate. Loving animals more was never the point. Protecting your capacity to love was. If this video put words to something you felt quietly, or helped you see your own reactions with more compassion, you're not alone here. This channel explores the deeper, quieter patterns of the human mind, without judgment and without pressure. If you'd like to continue these conversations, consider subscribing. And if any part of this resonated with you, leave a comment below. Your experience might help someone else feel understood too. Thank you for watching.